So, a while back, I made a Game of Thrones video addressing the plot leaks of Game of Thrones Season 7 that were released on Reddit. And to my luck, I pressed that these plot leaks were a bunch of bullshit, and it was nothing but really shitty fan fiction. But, to my luck, Game of Thrones started filming, and these plot leaks have become more and more valid. So while the disappointment settles in, I thought that I would make a video readdressing the plot leak. So I'm going to go through every single episode and all the plot points addressed in the plot leak and tell you what's been 100% confirmed and what hasn't been confirmed. So naturally, I got to issue a huge spoiler warning to everybody who doesn't want to know what happens in Game of Thrones Season 7, because these plot leaks are legit. So if you don't want to be spoiled, leave right now. But for those of you stuck around, let's get right into it. In episode 1, the plot leak states that Bran crosses the wall and meets with Dolorous Edd. And this has pretty much been confirmed. First of all, Watchers on the Wall reported that Bran is filming a scene with Dolorous Edd, as well as Bran was seen on set filming with the Starks. So what that means is that we know that Bran is coming to Winterfell, therefore he has to go through Castle Black to get there. So he's going to have a meeting with Dolorous Edd eventually. These plot leaks state that it is going to be in episode 1, and that does make sense. Because the last time we saw him, he was unprotected next to a weirwood tree in the middle of nowhere. He's got to start coming south right now. However, in Winterfell, drama is breaking out, and it's all focused around the people who didn't support Jon in Battle of the Bastards. Sansa wants to give away the lands of those people who betrayed Jon to the people who actually supported him. But Jon refuses Sansa, and he doesn't want to hold the children of Karstark and the Umber families responsible for the actions of their fathers. So obviously this doesn't please Lyanna Mormont, and Jon pretty much tells her to deal with it, and he doesn't plan to rule the North like it's always been ruled. Now this plot point hasn't been confirmed, but it has been confirmed that all of these characters are going to be in Winterfell filming some sort of scene. We've seen Lyanna Mormont, we've seen Sansa, we've seen Jon Snow, we've seen all of them on set. So we know that there is going to be a scene filmed with them. But this conflict does make a lot of sense. First of all, Lyanna Mormont would of course be angry because she was one of the few who supported Jon Snow. And Sansa's character arc over the last 6 seasons has proven that she has trust issues, and she has learned quite a bit from Littlefinger, and to trust these people who did betray Jon is not a smart way to keep your position. And Jon doesn't want to blame the children for the actions of their fathers, and this stays true to his character because of his compassion for others. In previous seasons, we've seen him show this compassion. Even though the wildlings killed hundreds of his brothers, he was able to forget that and not blame the women and children of the wildlings, and form an alliance to save them, as well as himself and his people. While this drama continues in Winterfell, we are going to be seeing Daenerys arrive at the shores of Dragonstone. And the plot leak says that we're going to see her walk up the steps until she reaches Stannis' old war room, and Tyrion is simply going to ask her, "Shall we begin?" We know that it is confirmed that she is going to arrive in episode 1. We've seen her on the set of Dragonstone with the director Jeremy Pottiswa on set. And since we know that she's going to be in Dragonstone in episode 1, this scene makes a lot of sense. And the last point in episode 1 is that the White Walkers are marching south towards the wall. This has not been confirmed whatsoever, but it does make a lot of sense. It would give Bran another reason to come south and have that meeting with Dolorous Edd in episode 1. So the White Walkers coming south, even though it hasn't been confirmed, it does make a lot of sense. In episode 2, the plot leak said that Jon receives a raven from Daenerys, and she's summoning all the lords of Westeros. Jon and Davos decide to go to Dragonstone because they need dragonglass. This does make a lot of sense because we do know that Jon actually does go to Dragonstone, and this reason does make a lot of sense. Of course, Jon would want to go south to get Dragonstone. And it makes sense that Daenerys would want to get in touch with all the lords of Westeros so she can ally herself with them before she takes the throne. So when Jon leaves, he leaves Sansa in his stead, which makes a lot of sense because she's the only other Stark in Winterfell at the moment. But he also leaves Ghost at Winterfell, and he stays there all season. And Ghost staying in Winterfell makes a lot of sense. On the set of Dragonstone, we haven't seen anything to hint that his direwolf is with him. And Dan and Dave, the producers of the show, don't like the direwolves because they're expensive and they're very tedious to film. So while Jon is leaving, the Lannisters are on the move. Dorne and Highgarden actually get sacked by the Lannisters, and Jaime confronts Olenna Tyrell at Highgarden, and she tells Jaime everything about how she and Littlefinger poisoned Joffrey, and Jaime pretty much tells her to drink poison and kill herself before she gets captured. Now, these little plot points haven't been confirmed, but what has been confirmed is that we've seen a Lannister flag flying over Highgarden. And we know that there's a huge action set piece that will take place at Highgarden in around episode 5. While the Lannisters are capturing Dorne and Highgarden, Euron's fleet actually attacks Yara Greyjoy and takes her prisoner, while Theon actually escapes by jumping overboard and he's rescued by other Ironborn. And this also is valid because we know that Theon gets to Dragonstone and he is alone. We've seen him be abused and pushed around, and Yara is nowhere to be seen. And during this battle, Euron attacks Dorne and he kills 2 of the Sand Snakes and he captures Ellaria. This is what the plot leak says, but what we actually know is that we've seen Euron Greyjoy in King's Landing with Ellaria and Tyene Sand with Yara Greyjoy, and he has them all prisoner. So we know, based on what we've seen on set, that all of these plot leaks are valid. And not only will Euron take Yara and Ellaria as prisoner, he will also take them to King's Landing along with Tyene Sand to Queen Cersei. In episode 3, Jon and Davos will actually arrive at Dragonstone, and Tyrion will meet them on the beach, and the Dothraki will take their ship. And these points were actually validated to the T on set. This exact same situation ended up happening. And Tyrion takes them and brings them along to go meet Daenerys, and on the way they encounter Missandei and Grey Worm. And it also states that the throne room contains a lot of Dothraki. We haven't seen the throne room, but we've seen the walk that Tyrion goes up the stairs to go see Daenerys with Jon and Davos, and Missandei is actually there. And then while Jon meets Daenerys, she insists that he bends the knee, and Jon refuses. And he ends up telling Daenerys about the White Walkers, and she doesn't believe him, but Tyrion insists that Jon isn't crazy. No set leak can confirm that this is true, however, these plot points do make a lot of sense. We know that Jon will never bend the knee because he spent too much time with the wildlings. And we know that Jon and Tyrion have also established a history in the past, and we know that Tyrion would defend Jon. And while this conversation takes place, Davos will try and mention Jon's resurrection, which he will quickly dismiss. And this also aligns with Davos' character because he's a people pleaser, he's a negotiator. He wants to put Jon on the biggest pedestal possible to make him appealing to Daenerys. And according to the plot leak, it works, because Daenerys respects Jon immediately, whereas Jon hasn't really warmed up to Daenerys.
I suppose Stannis does. You're king now. I don't have a king. You spent too much time with us, Jon Snow. You can never be a Neela again.
While this is happening, Bran arrives at Winterfell while Mira returns to home. What we have seen on the set is that Bran has been spotted on the set with all the other Starks, like Arya and Sansa and Jon Snow. And what we do know is that we haven't seen the actor who plays Mira Reed on set. So this plot point is unconfirmed, but it's highly plausible. And in this episode, Arya makes her way home to Winterfell, and along the way, she sees her old direwolf Nymeria. Now, this is also an unconfirmed plot leak. This could be false. But what I will say is that if they actually do introduce Nymeria to this story, she will definitely be coming back in Season 8. And lastly, Jorah and Sam meet in Old Town to find a cure for Grayscale. And I think a lot of people believe that Jorah would end up going to the Citadel because it's the most likely place to be cured of his Grayscale. However, this plot point is unconfirmed. We have never seen the actor who plays Jorah on the set with Sam. But what we have seen is we've seen Jorah return to Dragonstone with Daenerys. And we've also seen him go on a mission with Jon Snow. So what you can extrapolate from that is that Jorah never wants to put Daenerys in danger. And he promised her that he wouldn't return unless he cured his Grayscale. So if you connect the dots, it does seem like Jorah will cure his Grayscale. So this plot point is also highly plausible. In episode 4, apparently we're going to see Arya arrive at Winterfell. And this makes sense because on the set we have seen her with all of the other Starks. But while this is happening, a conflict will break out between the Lannisters and Daenerys' army. Jaime and Bronn and the whole Lannister army will be ambushed by Daenerys, Dothraki, and her dragons while marching back from Highgarden to King's Landing. The Lannister army is defeated and Jaime will almost be killed, but will be saved by Bronn. We have seen set leaks to suggest that they are going to be carrying carriages from Highgarden to King's Landing and there will be a giant fight break out. And it appears that Daenerys will win that fight. Jaime almost being killed and saved by Bronn has not been confirmed, but it is a possibility. And what the plot leak also states is after the fight, Daenerys torches a few Westerosi lords with her dragons, which will include Sam Tarly's brother and father. And this is also pretty much confirmed. First of all, we've seen a scene where there has been people burning with fire, and it was suggested that it was actually a dragon. Also, we know that Randall Tarly is coming back, as well as somebody was recast to play Sam's brother. So these confirmations highly suggest that this is actually going to happen. After all this, Tyrion gives Daenerys some advice and tells her not to attack King's Landing because she will end up killing a lot of civilians. This also has not been confirmed, but it is highly plausible because Tyrion would say something like that. And Daenerys may have a certain disregard for the citizens of King's Landing. And lastly, Jon has a realization which I didn't believe at first, but he realizes that the only way to work together and to fight the White Walkers is to get a live specimen of a white so he can show everybody. Now this idea is pretty much confirmed. Watchers on the Wall has confirmed that there will be a white that is being captured, and it will be used and shown in the Dragon Pit. We know that Jon also goes north with a party of men, and there's no other reason why I think that they would go north of the Wall, only to catch a white. So everything that has been confirmed is pointing to suggest that this is also true. And in episode 5, when all this chaos is happening, Sam and Gilly actually flee Old Town and make their way to Winterfell, according to the plot leak. And to our surprise, on the set, we got a picture of Sam and Gilly dressed in warm attire. And they're in a carriage and they're leaving, which it does suggest that they are leaving to Winterfell, but that is not confirmed, but we know that they're going to leave Old Town in Game of Thrones Season 7. And while Sam is leaving, Jorah is actually going to reach Dragonstone with Daenerys. And we've also seen this confirmed on the set, and this does suggest that he is cured of grayscale because he wouldn't put Daenerys in danger. The leak also says that Jon receives a raven telling him that Bran and Arya have returned to Winterfell, which I guess will be a really nice, touching moment to see with Jon. However, it is unconfirmed. But we can put some information together and extrapolate and say that we know that Jon has contact with Winterfell. And this is because based on set pictures, we've seen him meeting up with Tormund, the Hound, Beric Dondarrion, and Thoros of Myr, and we know that they're making their way north. So there has to be some form of contact between Jon and Winterfell, or Jon and them. But it does suggest that he does have contact between him and Sansa, and it does make sense that he would have contact. And while Jon gets this information, Tyrion and Davos are actually going to go on a secret mission in King's Landing and have a secret meeting with Jaime and Bronn. And according to the plot leak, Tyrion tries to persuade them to surrender to Daenerys, and Jaime ignores it. So Tyrion and Davos decide to leave peacefully, and on their way they find Gendry making weapons. And he ends up coming along for the ride, and we've seen that in the set leaks. We see Tyrion fleeing on a shore, which could be King's Landing, and we see two other people with him, Davos and Gendry. So the meeting with Jaime and Bronn is unconfirmed, however we know that he's going to King's Landing to get Gendry. And when they arrive back in King's Landing, Jon, Jorah, Gendry, and Davos will set sail for the Wall. The plot leak also states that they're going to be looking to capture a white in order to prove to the other Lords of Westeros and to Daenerys that they do exist and they want to get support to help fight them. And we have seen a picture, a set leak of Jon, Jorah, Gendry, and Davos leaving on a ship. And we've also seen them in set leaks in a very snowy climate, which could suggest that they actually are going beyond the Wall. And Watchers on the Wall has indeed confirmed that they're collecting a white. So that plot point has been confirmed. And we see all this chaos take place in episode 6. According to the plot leak, the party, which includes Jon, Jorah, Gendry, and Davos, are going to arrive on Eastwatch by the Sea by boat, and Tormund, the Hound, Beric Dondarrion, and Thoros of Myr are going to be in a dungeon, according to the plot leak, and greet them there. Davos will also stay behind at the boats, while Jon will take the Hound, Beric Dondarrion, Thoros of Myr, Tormund, Jorah, and Gendry white hunting. Now, the whole cast of all of these characters have all been seen on set. Everyone except for the actor who plays Beric Dondarrion, but it's safe to say that he will also be involved. We've also seen filming in Iceland on the black sand beaches, which shows 2 boats, which really does prove the validity of this plot leak. But then as they go further north, the whole team is attacked by the Night King's army, which includes a white polar bear. And this bear ends up killing Thoros Emir. And this is a very slow death. And all of these plot points we will never truly know because it's heavily involving CGI. But we do know that they are going to be filming on a big ice lake. And we do know that Thoros Emir is going to be in Game of Thrones Season 7. And while all this chaos is happening, they're surrounded on an island on a frozen lake, and they're nearly overcome by whites and white walkers until Dany shows up with her dragons, and she ends up flying the majority of the team back, but she ends up leaving Jon behind. And all of these plot points are unconfirmed except for the frozen lake that we have seen. And while this is happening, Jon is almost killed, but Benjen arrives and sends Jon off on his horse while he continues to fight the Horde. And Jon watches Benjen be swarmed by the undead as he rides away, half dead to safety. This is also unconfirmed, but we do know that Benjen is going to be in Game of Thrones Season 7, and we have seen him in Belfast among Kit Harington, the actor who plays Jon Snow, and many other Game of Thrones characters. But this is where it gets crazy. Viserion is killed and becomes the Night King's mount. And it gets so intense that Jon offers to lay down his title to King in the North if Daenerys and her forces help him against the White Walkers. And the plot leak also specifies that this scene between Jon and Daenerys is private. Now these are all unconfirmed, but based on everything that's been confirmed so far, this seems like it could be a realistic approach. I always believed that the Night's King could raise a dragon. I thought it would be Drogon, but Viserion does make sense. If you follow the three heads of the dragon theory, we know that Viserion should be Tyrion's dragon. And the show hasn't really addressed Tyrion to be the Mad King's son. Even though he doesn't need to be a Targaryen to ride the dragon, he has developed a relationship with him, but I don't believe they spent enough time developing that bond between Tyrion and the dragons. I think it would be interesting to change up the story from the history of Game of Thrones. Instead of having 3 dragon riders kill Tyrion's dragon before he is able to become a rider. Now after episode 6, episode 7 becomes kind of a mixed bag. Plot leak says that there's going to be a giant meeting at the Dragon Pit, and this meeting will contain pretty much every major character in Game of Thrones. And they arrive with a white, and they show Cersei how it can't die. The mountain or the hound will chop them up and it will still keep moving. And Jon will say that only dragonglass or fire can kill it. But the interesting twist is that Cersei says that she will help them defeat the undead, but then later admits to Jaime that she was lying and she will use the undead to help clear out the majority of her enemies. This will end up disgusting Jaime and he will ride north. What has been confirmed is that there will be filming in the Dragon Pit and it will contain all of the major characters of Game of Thrones. And all the characters involved are Cersei, Daenerys, Jon Snow, Tyrion, Jaime, Davos, Missandei, the Hound, Theon, Brienne, Varys, Bronn, Jorah, Euron, Qyburn, Pod, the Mountain, and Quono. What is unconfirmed is we don't know that Jaime leaves Cersei at the end of this season. And I think everyone was expecting for Cersei to go Mad Queen mode in this season and Jaime to end up killing her and in turn killing himself also. But this is an unconfirmed plot point, as well as Cersei awakens in a bed soaked with blood because she miscarries a child. This is also unconfirmed. And during this Dragon Pit parlay, Tyrion will take time to talk to Cersei alone in the Dragon Pit. This hasn't been confirmed, but I'm confident that this is going to happen. These characters have been feuding against each other for all these seasons, and I think it's important to establish a moment where they can talk to each other and see how far they've come. Tyrion is now handed the king to Daenerys, while Cersei is currently the queen of Westeros. I think it's important to have that scene and have them talk and really establish where they've been and where they are now and how to move forward. And while this scene in the Dragon Pit is happening, Sam and Bran will apparently figure out Jon's heritage, and apparently he is a legitimized Targaryen named Aegon. This is also unconfirmed. I don't think that this is true. First of all, Aegon is the name of Rhaegar's other son, and I doubt he would name 2 of his sons the same name. Also, I think Jon being legitimized doesn't go with who his character is. What's important about Jon is his blood and who he is. He identifies as a Stark, and the fact that he's a Targaryen doesn't really matter. But if this plot point were true, it would make him a huge contender for the throne. And the drama in Winterfell continues, where Littlefinger has been manipulating Arya and Sansa ends up sentencing Littlefinger to death, and Arya ends up killing him. And according to the plot leak, Littlefinger will use the letter that Sansa wrote to Robb in the first season to pit them against one another. This is an unconfirmed plot leak. However, Watchers on the Wall has stated that Littlefinger will try and capitalize on opportunities to pit the sisters against each other. And I do personally think that it would make sense for them to kill Littlefinger, as in this season is probably the last time we're going to see the political aspect of the show. The next season is going to be all about survival. Littlefinger doesn't really fit into that picture. And in brighter news, after the Dragon Pit, Jon and Daenerys will head north and have sex on a boat headed north. So that is interesting, and it is also unconfirmed. And we close off the final shot of episode 7 with the wall falling down. The Night King attacks the wall with the reanimated Viserion, and this dragon now breathes blue flame, and that has also been unconfirmed. So overall, the majority of these plot leaks have become extremely valid. These plot leaks came out before Game of Thrones really started filming, and as time has come on, these plot points have become more and more confirmed. The only major plot points that aren't confirmed are things that we can't see. We can't see a reanimated dragon because it has to be put in post. We can't see the conversation that Jon has with Daenerys about the White Walkers. But I think if you put pieces together based on what has been confirmed, that all of these plot points do make a lot of sense, and now I think everything in this plot leak is true, and I think we can expect to see everything that has been put in this plot leak in Game of Thrones Season 7. So now, after I've spoiled everything for you guys, I just thought I'd do a quick analysis to show you guys and compare, since before I was such a downer on the plot leaks. But now they're pretty much 100% true. But I want to know what you guys think. Let me know in the comment section down below. How do you feel about these plot leaks? Do you disagree with my opinion, or do you agree with me? I would love to hear it. And I have some theory videos coming. I don't want to keep doing these videos where I am just spoiling stuff. So you can expect some theory videos coming soon. But until then, I'll see you guys later.